Clara had chosen Zermatt precisely for its isolation. The sheer, intimidating majesty of the Matterhorn was meant to dwarf her worries. The late-stage career anxiety, the sterile perfection of her apartment, the heavy silence of a life successfully built, yet fundamentally empty. At 46, she was a renowned architect, but loneliness had sharp edges, and she needed the crisp alpine air to smooth them down. She was sipping a vintage Sylvaner by the colossal stone fireplace in the chalet's lounge, wrapped in a cashmere throw, when the laugh cut through the quiet hum of wealthy relaxation. It wasn't just a sound, it was a memory imprinted on her cellular structure. That slightly gravelly, overly enthusiastic burst of sound that had narrated the first 30 years of her life. Clara froze, the wineglass halfway to her lips. She tracked the sound to a group emerging from the snow-dusted double doors, still wearing ski gear. And there he was, Ethan, 47 years old, a decade since she had seen him, and yet he was immediately, undeniably him. His usually unruly dark hair was streaked with silver now, giving him an air of distinguished ruggedness that suited his successful life as an international photojournalist. The lines around his eyes were deeper, telltale signs of harsh sun and far-flung deadlines. But those eyes, a warm, reckless shade of brown, locked onto hers across the crowded room. The air thinned, colder than the ice outside. He broke away from his companions immediately, shedding his ski gloves onto a plush leather chair. He moved with the easy, restless grace she remembered, a stark contrast to the rigid control Clara had enforced on her own movements for years. "Clara, is that really you?" His voice was a low, astonished rumble. Clara managed a tight, professional smile that felt entirely inadequate. "Ethan, what are the odds? I thought you were perpetually stationed somewhere requiring anti-malaria tablets." "I took a break, needed mountains instead of deserts for once." He stopped just short of the low mahogany table, his presence suddenly overwhelming the elegant space. He didn't ask how she was. Childhood best friends didn't require trivialities. He just looked at her, searching for the girl he'd left behind and finding the woman she had become. "You look different." "Older, Ethan. We're older." "No," he disagreed softly, his gaze lingering on the nervous tension around her mouth. "More contained. I always knew you'd build things, but I didn't realize you'd build walls this high." The directness stung, but it was also refreshing. This was the curse and blessing of Ethan. He saw straight through the performance. They spent the next 4 hours catching up, the decade melting away like snow under the sun. They talked about her monolithic city projects and his near misses in conflict zones. They spoke about the partners who had come and gone, always acknowledging the unspoken irony that neither of them had truly settled. "When you left New York," Clara finally admitted, staring into the flickering stone hearth, "I thought it would only be 6 months. Then 6 months became a year, and then I realized you were never coming back to stay. And I knew why." "Why?" "Because you knew if you stayed, you'd have to choose the world and me. And I knew you'd resent me for making you choose." A heavy silence descended, filled only by the crackle of burning logs. "That wasn't entirely fair to either of us, was it?" he murmured. "We were too young to handle that kind of gravity, even if our feelings were real." "Were they?" He shifted, his knee brushing hers under the table, a connection that felt like a sudden, electric surge. "Ethan, you knew. You were my gravity. Still are. That's why I avoided you so completely. I needed distance to fly." They decided to ski the advanced run at sunrise the next morning, seeking a thrill to match the tension thrumming between them.
But in the quiet pre-dawn hours, sitting in the hushed lobby waiting for the first lift, Ethan pulled her behind a curtained window, looking out at the pristine, untouched snow. "I leave for Nepal in 2 days," he whispered, his hands cradling her face, the rough skin of his palms a stark sensation against her smooth cheek. Clara's heart seized. She knew this wasn't a sustainable reunion, but hearing the timetable felt like a punch. "Of course, the mountains always call you." "They do, but there are different kinds of mountains, Clara." His thumbs traced the curve of her jaw. "The ones you build, the ones I climb, and the ones we share." He kissed her then, not the tentative, nostalgic kiss of friends recalling a high school crush, but a deep, mature acknowledgement of a connection that had only intensified, festered, and grown richer over 10 years of neglect. It was hungry and regretful, tasting of cool air and possibility. When they pulled apart, breathing hard, the first weak light of dawn was just touching the peak of the Matterhorn, illuminating the valley in a cool blue. "I can't stay, not yet, and you can't abandon everything you built for a promise I might break again." Clara leaned her forehead against his chest, hearing the steady, strong rhythm of his heart beneath the wool. She felt the weight of their respective complicated lives pressing down. "So what does this mean, Ethan? After all this time, all this distance, what happens now?" He held her tighter, inhaling the scent of her hair, a scent he realized he'd never truly forgotten. "It means," he whispered in her hair, "that we finally know the choice isn't gone. It was just postponed, and we'll have to figure out if being right here, right now, is enough of a foundation to start building again." He released her slowly, backing up just far enough to hold her gaze. The promise wasn't concrete. The future was still a vast, unknown terrain, but the acknowledgement of the depth of their bond was absolute. They stood on the precipice, the valley stretching below them, ready to take the terrifying, exhilarating run together, even if the destination remained unclear. The end.